Most people can't guard anybody one-on-one. The rules are different now, but when we played,
you got to be able to talk to your guards that this guy's open, rotate over.
Any pick and roll, we're trapping.
We didn't let this ball come into here. We're not letting him come into here.
You need to recognize when you're not on the ball, where do your teammates need help at?
You would know right when you can't throw it. As soon as they're cutting, 5 would have a clear out to go with her right hand right behind it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scouting Report. I'm your host, Tim Gray, Associate Head Men's Basketball Coach at Spalding University, and today my guest needs no introduction. He's a Louisville legend. He was an assistant coach at the University of Louisville for 13 years under Denny Crum. He was a head basketball coach at the University of Tennessee. My special guest is Wade Houston.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for being with us on Scouting Report today.
Good to be here.
Okay. Now, a couple of things I want to talk with you in the beginning is I want to ask you about how was those experiences of being an assistant coach for 13 years with Denny Crum at U of L? How was that?
Good experiences. I learned a lot, participated a lot, had a lot of responsibility, and even before that, I go back to the time when I was coaching in high school and I coached against your dad. Your dad was playing at Manual High School when I was coaching at Aaron's High School. And by the way, they had a great team with your dad and Philip Bond and those guys. So even talking about experiences at U of L with Denny, I just had to bring that up. Just letting you know how old I am. And when I was coaching in high school, your dad was playing at Manual, and they had a really good team.
So, but that, to be honest, that you bring up the age factor, that shows me, where we are with this thing. But at the end of the day, between the experiences you had at U of L, now your experiences that you had at Tennessee, how was the change from going from assistant coach to head coach, especially at that level? So, what was the experience, and what was the transitioning learning experience you had to go through with that?
I always tell upcoming assistant coaches who talk about going from an assistant to a varsity coach is that 6 inches make a lot of difference. What do you mean? I said, when you move over 6 inches from that assistant coach's position to the head coach position, it makes all the difference in the world. You're going from making suggestions to making decisions. And I used to always remember on the sideline doing games sometimes, I would tell Denny, I said, I got a great play that I want to implement. I want to put this, and he would look at me, and depending on how the game was going, sometimes he'd smile and say, "Coach," he said, let's put that play in the summer camp next summer. I said, we're not going to do it right now, but the summer we'll have a chance to put it in that summer camp. But no, you have to be prepared. It's not something that just comes with you wanting to be a head coach. You put your time in, you pay your dues. You study the game, you network, and you do all those things to prepare yourself. So it's all about preparation. So again, by going from being an assistant coach to a head coach is a totally different world. And Tennessee was a challenging situation, being the first black coach in the SEC. You faced a lot of things. You faced the travel, the unknowns about where you're going to go when you travel, especially if your family's with you. The officials, that was the one thing that I thought was always a challenge to me, was coming in. Yeah, so, and officials in a lot of cases have a way of protecting themselves. It's like you look up and the calls are like 13-1 against you, and then they'll have a run of a period in the second half where they kind of even it up, and they make enough calls to make it where they don't make themselves look so bad. But I'd say the officiating might have been the most challenging thing that I faced going from an assistant to U of L to head coach at Tennessee.
I understand how refs can impact the game and how.
Very much so.
Because the thing is, what I used to tell people, I tell my players when I was coaching, at the end of the day, you got to understand that refs are humans, and the way you approach them, they're gonna react in that way. So you got to understand how to handle them.
Right.
So what we're going to do today on Scouting Report, we're going to talk about philosophy and strategies, because I know you have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of strategies that you can talk about and explain today. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
All right, Coach, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk and discuss the concepts of philosophy and strategies that you probably ran and dealt with when you was at U of L as assistant coach for Crum. The first thing we want to talk about is the type of offensive success that y'all ran right there when you was at U of L. Could you maybe draw up some plays that your philosophies and concepts that y'all had, and what plays y'all maybe ran back then as assistant coach?
Sure. And I do this with the understanding that we ran the UCLA high post offense, which Coach Crum had run at UCLA under Coach Wooden, and we tweaked it quite a bit based on the players that we had. But our offense was predominantly designed around big guards.
Okay, quick question. With you saying that, name some of the guards that y'all had, some of the guards that y'all, so you can have understanding.
Yeah, well, before I got to U of L, Coach Crum had Junior Bridgman and Alan Murphy, who were two of the best in the country in '75. Lost to UCLA in '75 when Terry Howard, I think, had made 35 straight free throws, and he missed one against UCLA and Richard Washington and that group of guys. But then you had Darrell Griffith and you had Milt Wagner, Lancaster Gordon.
We're talking about guys about 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, 6'4", 6'5". Jerome Harmon, LeBradford Smith. So our offense was predicated on having big guards, and again, a reason for that is that we fought hard against the Kentuckys and Indianas and the Notre Dames on getting the 7-foot centers. So we just found that what we had success with was getting 6'7", 6'8" guys who were interchangeable. You know, Charles Jones, Scooter McCrae, Rodney McCrae, Billy Thompson, Herb Crook.
Guys that are versatile.
Versatile, athletic. And, we could go to Mississippi, go to Alabama, or even here in Louisville, Tony Kimbrough and Manuel Forrest, and get guys that were versatile and just really good players. And we could recruit those guys because they wanted to come. So now when you start recruiting the 7-footers, the Bowies and the Kent Bensons and the Melvin Turpins, oh man, I mean that's a challenge because you got everybody in there and recruiting them, and I mean it's just all so hectic. So we go to Scuba, Mississippi, and find Charles Jones, 6'7", 6'8", jump out of the gym, could do the things we wanted, wanted to come, wanted to be here, and we had more success that way. So in the '80s, I mean that's what we did. So, but back to the original question on the philosophy and strategy. In the high post offense, the first thing we're trying to do, well, two things. We're trying to find a high post center, who's a good enough passer that can make the correct pass and make the correct decision to one of our big guards who's cutting. So we're setting up in our high post offense. So we're having the 1 and 2 running from a 2-guard front. And if the ball is here on this side, then we got our 5 guy who's our post guy, and then we got our 3 on the wing, and then our 4 on the opposite wing. And we always had different things that we practice every day in the getting into this set. Like we run what we call up, out, and back door. So this 3 would come. He would start a little lower. So now, because people try to overplay this first pass, so we're saying, okay, you got to come up and pin this defensive guy in this position. And now you got to come out. If he fights over on the defensive side, then you're going back door. So we run this triangle. That's every day in practice. And a lot of what we did with running this was not so much how fancy it was. People run intricate offenses now with the spacing, which is the difference between what we did then because of the 3-point shooting and those kind of things. But when we did this in pregame warm-ups, like when you come out, people shooting layups and they shooting jump shots. We got a coach that's standing out here, denying the ball here, making this guy go up, out, and back door. So that's our first initial move. So we're trying to hit this guy to his outside hand on the way out. So we don't want him standing receiving the ball. So as he comes out to receive the ball, we're gonna make this pass here to this guy. Okay. So when that happens, we're going to bring this 4 up to the elbow. He's coming here. And now once we make this pass to this 3 who came out, then this 5 is going to set a screen
The back screen.
Back screen for the 2. So the 2's coming off with no defensive help below the foul line.
Gotcha.
That's what we're banking on. So when this guy cuts off,
He should be open.
there's no defensive help. And not only should he be open, assuming that he sets his guy up,
He can post up.
then he can post up.
Okay, we'll say, who would your typical 2-guard be? Who could be possibly that 2-guard?
Either guy. So that's why we had 2 big guards. It could be
Darryl Griffith.
Darryl Griffith. It could be Darryl Griffith. It could be Lancaster. It could be Milt. It could be because this other guard, for the most part, is going to be another 6'4" guard. So sometimes we have to go, instead of going directly to the 3, if he is covered, then we're going to go guard the guard. So we're going to have this guy set this guy up, come out and receive the ball. So now we're going to go guard the guard, and that's why this 4 is here, because now he's going out. Okay, so now we're going to hit him. The 5 slides over, and he's going to set the back screen for the 1. Same thing on the opposite side of the floor.
And I think one of the things that's kind of getting lost in the art of basketball right now, because of how much people are shooting a 3, like you're saying, you're posting up the 1s and the 2s,
Right.
And basically winning in the trenches,
Right.
The physicality,
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it in a little bit. I was going to ask you about the nature of the physicality of the game, but what you're saying, you're posting up the 1s and 2s, which is like you're saying we have a true advantage that we know, and we're going to take advantage of that.
Right.
So is that what you're trying to say right there?
That's exactly what we're trying to say, and it was kind of created out of necessity. Although UCLA, when they had Bill Walton and those guys, they did some different kind of things with their UCLA guard cut offense, and everything has to be tweaked. And we talked earlier about Alabama when your dad was there as an assistant with Clem Sanderson. They were so good defensively that it was hard to go guard the guard, hard to go guard the forward. So we would run, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit on what we did.
Well, right now you're basically letting my father know what y'all did against him. So you're letting him in the locker room right now.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure he would have liked to have known that back then.
Yeah, and we worked on this. It kind of evolved in it, and against Duke in 1986, for example, Duke was like your dad's teams and Alabama's teams. They were so good defensively. They contest every pass. You had to really set your guy up, go back door, then you go guard to guard, and then you had to do everything to get your guy open.
To be technical.
Yeah. So against Duke, for example, we had Duke had Tommy Amaker and Johnny Dawkins, who were really good defensively, and the guys inside, Jay Billis and Allery, those guys are King. They were good defensively. So. And we had Purvis Ellison, who was our center at that time. And then we had Billy Thompson and Herb Crook on the wings. So because we couldn't get Billy open sometimes, we couldn't get Herb open sometimes, we would interchange these guys. We just come in, they'd interchange these guys. But in the second half, we started to just pin this guy, this defensive guy. We just pin. When he come up, we'd pin him. And we finally started getting this guy open. But the difference that we made was that when we hit here, we just had Purvis roll down to a high-low.
And just let him have it.
We just send Purvis down to the high-low. We wanted to take away as much movement because the movement just wasn't, it wasn't working. So now we're looking at Purvis,
just to get it to him,
and he was getting the ball in the low post, and they couldn't defend him, even the freshman.
Yeah.
And if we couldn't get it to him here, this is our first look. Just dropping it in to Purvis.
Yeah.
If that wasn't working, then we bring Herb up to replace him. And we keeping Jeff Hall and Milt on the same side of the floor. So this whole side of the floor is open over here. So there's no defensive help. There's no defensive help. So Herb Crook has now got the ball. Purvis is posting. If they front him, we're going to get it to him from over here. Okay? And I mean, if they stay behind him, if they stay behind him, we're going to get it over here. If they front him, then we're going to flash Herb up. He's just going to seal and come to the middle. Now you got to defend him 2 ways. So it's not necessarily a play that you can run every time down, but when you get good teams, like I said, like the Alabamas and the Dukes who can deny, then that's what we would do. We just run what we call swing him. We just swing him from the high post down, hit him here if they're staying behind him. If they front him, we're going to bring this guy up with no weak side help. So that's the thing we're looking for, making sure there's no weak side help on this side of the floor.
Because I know, because one of the things that would probably happen nowadays, and I remember I was watching on ESPN Classic a '92 film of Alabama versus LSU when LSU had Shaq, and my father was at Alabama and they had Robert Ory Latrell, James Hollywood Robinson, and I just sat there, and this is when I was at U of L as assistant GA. I was sitting there, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sit here and say how many pick and rolls is set in the second half. There was 2, and that's between 2 teams. 2 pick and roll set the whole second half. I said, that's how much the game's changed. So I know if you're sitting here and you were talking about this notion, nowadays probably somebody would just break off and try and set a pick and roll. Without even trying to execute the notion of what you're seeking.
Well, here's the other thing too. I erase this off. And the thing I liked about the UCLA high post offense that we ran is that you're taking what the defense gives you. Okay, so let's say, what we call our duck in move. First of all, let's say the ball. The 2 guard cut, he's down here on the post. We're looking to post him up. The 3 has the ball over here on the wing, and the 5 is here. Then you got the 1 who slides over ball side, and the 4 is still here, okay? That's the same as we have here. So now this is our initial cuts. He's not open when he cuts. We can't get it to him. Now against UCLA in the Final Four, in Indianapolis, Griff, they had a hard time defending Griff on his cuts. When Griff would cut, they didn't know whether to defend him, and we just threw over the top to him
because he could get some lobs too.
and he could go get it, and against UCLA in the Final Four. But just say in a normal situation, he's not open, so we go back to the 5 because the 5's guy drops to try to help that on that cut. So now he steps out, and he's open. Now, one of our big and best plays was the duck in. So once he gets it here, this 4 is walking his guy down underneath the basket. You walk him all the way down.
You whip him.
And leg whip him, like you said. Meanwhile, the strong action over here is that once he makes the pass, he's coming down to set a down screen. So here's the 2 who cut. He sticks they're meeting at the goal. He's sticking his head under the goal. He's coming to the goal. The ball now is here, so he's going to set a down screen on the 2.
Gotcha.
Once he makes that pass to the 5, he sets the down screen on the 2. 5 now has, so here comes the 2 off its down screen. That's where, you can make a 3 now on that play. But this is what we're looking for right here. This is like Derek Smith and Wiley Brown and those guys. I mean, they were just so tough. So now the ball's here, and he leg whips him. He just steps right in front of the goal. So now he's facing up playing one-on-one against this. Now, if he can't get it, let's say the ball comes into here, and the guy does a great defensive job on the leg whip. He can't get him on the seal, so he pops right back up to where he came from. Now here's our pick and roll. It's what we call a skinny post. The skinny post is what they called it with the triangle with Phil Jackson. And I went when Allen was playing with the Knicks and Phil was the GM. I used to go up and we compare notes on the UCLA high post and the triangle offense. They were both very similar. And so now he comes, he's got the ball here. He can't hit him. He can't hit the 2 coming off. And this guy's also posting up now. Once he sets that down screen, he's doing a hard post up. But here's what we're looking for, what we call a skinny post. And now he just kicks it back out. This guy, his defensive guy, has got to be helping somewhere, we assume. So now he kicks it back out to 1. And now we got what we call a 2-man game with a 1 and 4. It's a high pick and roll, what they do now. That's all, you see so much of that today with a high pick and roll. So the 4 steps up. Now he can either pass it to him or he just dribble off of it. So with the whole side of the floor cleared, so you got everything else is on this side of the floor, and now you got 2 guys. You got one of these guards with the pick and roll with the 4, and that's, we got. And if you look at that whole play, we got so many options depending on what the defense does. So
because it's so far, the floor is wide open, and the thing is, like you said, he can hit him, he can go off for a dribble handoff, or whatnot, or he could keep it ball screen, and he's got the. And the thing is about the pick and roll going this way, it's not the norm.
Right.
So the nature of how the floor sets when you come off this way is different, and it drags the defense different.
It drags, and he makes the pass here, and he swings, and then he dives inside. So that's. Because again, everything is still the action's over here, so he can come either there, either way.
Well, we'll just say this: you just gave us the intricacies of that UCLA offense, and it's like one of those myths and those secrets. Like how do you handle the UCLA, or how's it ran? And that was perfect. That was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to another scenario.
Okay.
Now let's talk about what type of defense. With the nature of the athletic guards that you guys had when you were at U of L, defensively, what was your philosophy? What was your thought process? Were y'all pressing? Were y'all trapping? Was it hard man-to-man? What was y'all thought process defensively, especially with the type of athletes you had? What was your thought process defensively?
Well, another advantage for having 2 big guards is that we could switch. So we never really had that many bad mismatches because you got Darrell Griffith guarding the offensive center, and as athletic as he was, he could guard a center until we could switch back with the big guy. So our philosophy was that we're switching. We're playing a switching man-to-man, and it's kind of like Golden State was when they were playing so well. When they had 5 guys that were pretty much with Clay and Green and those guys. Iguodala, right, Livingston. Now occasionally they throw in a big guy, for the center, but in a lot of cases, Golden State would had 5 interchangeable guys, and they would switch. So I had a coach from New Orleans, from the Pelicans, came up to visit me. That's been 2 or 3 years ago, and he was their defensive coordinator, and he said, and the reason I'm here is that we want to play the same way you guys played when you had so much success at Louisville with Coach Crum, and also the way that Golden State is doing a lot of it now. So the reason, another reason that we had the big guards is because we wanted to switch and be able to. Our thing was that mismatches don't necessarily beat you. Open shots beat you more than mismatches.
But see, that's what I was going to ask you. With the nature of switching like that, I think offensively they would be trying to seek out the mismatch.
Exactly.
And the question is, are you saying like, well, we can afford to switch because we don't think we have any mismatches defensively? Like we can switch whatever.
Not as much as any other teams who have like 5'11" point guards or centers who are just so slow they can't defend a guy for.
Because I mean, even though we're going to say, as you're mentioning, these guys are asking from the NBA. You see, just basically a lot of people they just switch.
Yeah.
They just switch, and so it resorts to who has the mismatch?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So my question is that the way you beat it? Is that the way you can beat that notion?
Well, yeah, and see what I see happening in the NBA is that, you're trying to get Boogie Cousins on a guard. Boogie's man is going up setting a high ball screen, and they're forcing him to switch on a guard, and not just Boogie, but the centers, traditional centers.
Like Brook Lopez.
Like Lopez. They're trying to get him to come up and have to switch, on the guards, on Trey. So it's just that's a bad match. But with us. That didn't really hurt us as much because Scooter and Charles Jones could defend the point guard much easier than a Brook Lopez could, or most guys. So that was part of what we did defensively, is that we used our big guards in our switching man-to-man, and we got to the point where we didn't switch unless we had to. So if there were. For example, we played against Indiana when Bobby Knight and Steve Alford and those guys in Indiana. They ran the motion offense as good as anybody will ever run it. I mean, you get off of one screen, you got another screen coming. You got a back screen coming at you. You got horizontal and vertical screens. if you're trying to play them a traditional man-to-man, you couldn't defend them. We didn't think we could. So the success we had against Knight, we didn't play him that often when he was there, was because we could switch almost every screen that they had, and we had success because of being able to switch on most of their screens in their motion offense. And that's when the motion offense came in. It was so hot. Everybody was now trying to copy the Indiana offense, the motion offense, and it's good. I mean, because it's you put a team on the floor that doesn't understand how to fight over screens, through the screen, how to do a hard hedge, soft hedge, then you got a hard time defending that offense, especially the way Knight ran it. Yeah. And he get a lot of calls. Too. So he set a lot of screens, and it's hard to defend him. So the other thing was that we weren't going to play you in a half-court set so long that you can get the advantage on. So we're going to press you 2-2-1. And that might be another question you had, but that was part of our philosophy.
You want to draw that up a little
bit?
Okay. Go ahead and draw it out. You say you're pressing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Full court 2-2-1. And we had several variations of how we ran it. Matter of fact, Roger was one of our best in that 2-2-1 offense.
Mr. Bergman.
Oh, yeah, Roger Bergman was one of the best, and he would set the tempo, call the plays, because in our basic 2-2-1, we're setting up here, back, and we're keeping the ball out of the middle. So you're taking the ball out here. It doesn't matter what you do offensively. You might go 1-3-1 or whatever. So now when that happens, we're going to pinch this guy here, pinch him both ways, and we're going to come here, and we're going to force the ball down the sideline. That's our goal, So
now, why are you saying you're forcing it up the sideline?
Because that's where we want to set our traps. So and we're going to let this guy catch the ball. We're not going to let it come into here. Okay, we're going to let this ball come into here. We're not letting him come into here. So we're going to let it come into here. That's the pass we want you to make. Now this is theoretically. Now we make adjustments out of this. So our goal is to force this guy down the sideline. He's got the freedom to dribble down the sideline, and this guy's job is to help and retreat. So he'll help, then he retreats. He'll help, and then he retreats. Okay. Meanwhile, this guy is funneling him down the sideline, not letting him turn back to the middle. And the ideal hot spot for us is once this guy crosses the 10-second line here. Once he crosses that 10-second line, here comes a hard trap from this guy that funneled him, and this guy's coming up from here. This guy's coming over, because you're probably going to have a guy this side. This guy's coming over. This guy's dropping. When he leaves, or when he comes here, this guy is coming to the middle, and now he's coming as back support for this guy who left. And again, I'm giving you an ideal situation for us,
and he's got 4 defenders around him because he's got half court,
sideline, and these other defenders.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, and you're doing the same thing on this side of the floor. You're just rotating people, where when he comes out here, then this guy's dropping down behind him. He's coming to the middle. This guy is doing bluff. He's going to bluff him, retreat, bluff, retreat until he gets. See, the ball handler here. His job is to make this ball handler think that he's not even concerned about him because he's retreating. But once he comes across that line with this guy,
you go get him.
Then you go get him, and everybody else rotates in the right spot.
Gotcha.
And again, that's the. But now here's what we had a lot of success with also. Let's say we're playing against teams who say, well, you know what? Louisville is so good at the press. We're going to slow this thing down. We're going to rotate it, walk it up, and slow it down. So then we would do what we call two denial. Okay. We call it 2D. And that's where Roger would make that call most of the time. Roger played all four spots of this thing. So now it doesn't matter where they are offensively. They could be, again, 1-3-1. It doesn't make any difference. So what we're doing is that we're denying the inbounds pass. We're gonna make them throw over top. So we'll bring one of the guys up. We still got these two. If they got two up here, we got two here. So we're basically matching up and saying, you're gonna have to throw over the top. We're full fronting everybody in the backcourt.
So would you say he's not in there, or who would you say is not in there? Yes, 6 guys.
Who's not in there for
offense?
Yeah. So we're gonna push him up. So we're gonna push up to here with this guy. We're gonna push over to here, and then we're gonna push over to here with this guy, and we're gonna push over to here with this guy. Okay, so everybody, when they say 2D, like a red alarm goes off, that means you got to find your guy, and we're full fronting everybody on the court, and we're gonna make them get the ball back to a poor ball handler. Okay, so and we can say if this is their best ball handler is here, then we're gonna full front him and make sure that he doesn't get the ball. So
okay, so if you want are you looking to make the poor ball handler handle it up the floor? Is that the objective,
Yeah.
or just are you looking to just
speed the team up?
Okay.
Basically,
Okay.
if we get lucky and find a poor ball handler.
So
Yeah.
the question is, are you looking to trap that poor ball handler, or just let that one guy handle
We're
it?
basically looking to come from behind. We're coming from behind looking for tips and deflections because everybody on the floor, here's a basket here my back, and they're going this way. So I'm full fronting whoever I rotate to. I'm full fronting him. When the ball comes into him, a team that likes to who likes to slow the ball down, and we faced a lot of those where people just, they had a nice offensive flow against the press. They knew they had all these sophisticated movements against the press. So if we're in 2-2-1, they got to run the diagonal cuts here, they reversing the ball here. That's fine. But now we're playing you man to man. We'll full front and make you throw over the top. Now, if I'm coming behind you, you looking behind, here's a guy coming from behind you, so we're looking to punch it away from the outside and then just go and deny it to everybody else on the floor to speed you up. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, now my question is about the game against Houston, what Hakeem Elijah won, in reference to that philosophy. When you're facing an athletic team with Clyde and those type of guys, was this an implementation? Were y'all looking to do this? Was that the theory?
We did that because we didn't think they had a strong enough point guard. Franklin was their point guard at the time, and he was a good athlete, but he wasn't a good point guard. So they had Clyde, they had Michal, they had Drexler, all the Benny Anders, all those guys were great athletes. But if you remember correctly, we were playing well. We had like a 6-7 point lead going into the game and really getting things going. Scooter's playing here. We force a trap on the sideline. We get a steal. Guy Lewis, Scooter's going in for a layup. Guy Lewis throws a towel out on the floor. Because he was so frustrated because they couldn't break our press at that time. Presses come in runs. You're not going to normally have a 40-minute spurt where you're still on the ball unless you got a really bad team. So we were going back and forth, great game, dunks and everything else. Then our press just starts to click in. They start to kind of panic a little bit. We're up like 6, 7, 8 points. Scooter makes a great steal here out of this trap. The Houston bench is down here, so when he steals the ball, Guy Lewis throws the towel out on the floor. And the official hits the technical. They stop the play, and we miss the 2 foul shots. We get the ball out on the side. We miss that shot. They come down, get a 3-point play, and now the game is all back to
the momentum change.
Momentum changed the whole way. So
he lucked up because you missed the free throws, but I mean he lucked up on
He did. I mean that was really our game, and that one turn of events really hurt us in that game against Houston and those guys. But you're talking about a great basketball game. I remember the first or second play of the game. They took a shot. Now we got Scooter, we got Rodney, we got Charles Jones, we got Billy Thompson. they take a shot, ball goes up, hits the back of the rim, goes up in the air, and our guys go after it. And I said, I'm saying to myself, you know, this is what we do. This is we got athletes.
Yeah.
And this hand comes from out of nowhere. I mean, it's like everybody else had come down, and he was still hovering over that was Akeem. He was still hovering over the basket. I said, uh-oh. I said, this is
A little different.
This is a little different from what we had seen. So, yeah, it's a little different. So,
Okay.
but it was,
Well, good.
yeah.
Well, that was great stuff, Coach. And
Yeah.
we just wanted to talk about that and touch on that, all that concepts. And I appreciate you on that one. So, okay, we'll move on to the next concept.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. So now you're the head coach at the University of Tennessee. Okay. What were your concepts and philosophies now as a head coach at the University of Tennessee? So what were the type of offensive strategies that you had when you were there?
Well, you know, ironically, I think part of the reason I was chosen there was because of the success we had at U of L. And back in the 80s, I mean, we were just rolling. I mean, from winning it in 80 and 82, losing to Georgetown, 83 we lost to Houston, in 86 we win it again. So it was just a good philosophy and a good way to play basketball and very successful. So I'm saying to myself, now I'm going to recruit the same way in terms of big guards and the same way I recruited at U of L. And I'm going to use pretty much the same philosophy. But what I found was that in the SEC, there were so many teams that had players, had kids that had played both sports growing up. Football was so strong in the SEC.
Yeah.
So now you got all these teams that have athletes. I mean, just really, I mean, world-class athletes. So offensively, you have to account for that. And especially having Allen, because when Allen came in and his freshman year having so much success, I mean, they finding the best athlete that they got anywhere on their team or on their bench to defend him. So the high post offense was still effective, you know. So I think he averaged 20 a game for 4 years, you know. So we still got a lot out of the high post offense, but I had to do things like, for example, when some teams, like Alabama, like your dad and your team, for example, and I go back to that because they were so good. With the shot clock, you know, we run the shot clock down. We're trying to run our high post offense and doing all the things. We're running the.
Now, you said the shot clock time then was 35 seconds.
Yeah.
But at one point, wasn't it 45?
It might have been 40. It might have been. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll say it's more than 30.
Yeah.
It was more than 30 at that time.
And even if I wasn't trying to get deep into the shot clock, we had to come up with some things that could get some shots for him, or you know, players like him if he's not in the game, because you're going against such good defensive players. So the one thing that we did after, you know, we're trying to go guard to guard, we're trying to swing our center down to the low post, and I said, okay, I just go low 1-4. You'll say, if you're that good as a team with your team concept defensively, I'm gonna see how good you are defending a player one-on-one of Allen's caliber. You know, so now I'm going low 1-4, so I bring him out.
And let him have it.
Out with the ball, and I'm dropping everybody else down to the baseline. You know, so I'm dropping here, 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 and here. So now all of a sudden, I said, now you got to remember, you got the whole floor to work with. I said, so don't rush it. I said, you know, we're going to see how good these guys are defensively. Now you got a 6'6" guard, you know, who can just raise up and get his shot off.
Yes.
So now I said, but in addition to doing that, I want my 4 and 5 out here on the outside. So at the point you're watching this and you see that he's getting stuck or this guy does a great defensive job, so now we're screening down on these guys and we're curling off of this for jump shots. So we're looking for that, and the post up. So if Allen hits this wing out here, this guy's posting up, and we're just going to go high-low like we did in the other one.
Gotcha.
Going high-low, so.
I mean, a lot of guys had a rough time with Allen, though, that's for sure.
Yeah. So But outside of our high post offense and doing things like that and running our curl, we had a couple of kids, a kid named Carlos Groves, who was 6'. I don't know if you remember the name, but really, Patino made this statement once. He said he's the one guy in the SEC that we have a hard time guarding, because he felt he could guard most people. But Los is 6'7", about 250, had great footwork, great hands.
He's a load.
Yeah, he's a load. So I do him like I did Purvis. I'm going high post offense. Okay, if we can't get all the way over to the weak side post or the skinny post, then I'm going low 1-4, and then I'm going to take my Carlos Groves down and run him the same way and let you defend him on the low post.
Okay. With that, and the thing is, what you're going to say is okay in reference to Allen. Okay.
Yeah.
With the maturation process for him, I'm pretty sure each year you were trying to figure out what was the best way to make the game easy for him. So, like, okay, coming in, was he more of a ball handler coming in, or did he become more like as he went on as time by his junior, senior year, he was like, here's the ball, we'll operate how we need to operate. But as a freshman or a sophomore, did you say, let me try and run him off screens, let me try and do this with him, and not just put everything on him initially? Was there a different process to him?
Well, the reason I did run him off a screen is because I didn't want to wear him out. But he was a good enough ball handler, because what I did, and your dad probably did you the same way.
He did.
I never let teams stick him down under the bucket, even though he was taller than a lot of kids, or most kids really. And I got a grandson like that now who's he's 6 feet, he's 10 years old. He's wears a size 12 shoe. But anyway, but when I go out to his practices, and I don't let them stick him down in the low post and just say, all you do is rebound and wait for the ball to come to you. So Allen was the same way. When Allen got to Tennessee, he was already a very good ball handler. Because if you're not, there's no way you're going to average 20-some points a game in the SEC if you can't handle the ball, because they're going to. And the other thing we faced was a lot of trick defenses, boxing ones, triangle and twos, and with Allen and the other big kid. So I don't know if I can remember all of the sets that we ran. We ran our man-to-man offense against a lot of those sets, So
Sometimes that's just the best way to go against him.
Yeah. But he was a very good ball handler, and
because I know in reference to the way he played, because he was such a focal point of the offense. And that's what I'm saying in reference to it. It's like a maturation process. And like I was saying, for him coming in as a freshman, I know, coming into that landscape of the SEC, like you're saying, you're even saying, you know what, I need to figure out how, because these guys are athletic and they're different than what I thought. So we're going to say, to make it easier, like you're saying, make it easier for you, we're going to try this screen action here. We're going to run you off this. Instead of saying like, okay, Allen, we're going to go 1-4 60% of the time, 70. But like by his junior, senior year, where he's physically just a different animal, you can say, let's go 1-4 60. We're going 70% of the time, 80% of the time. You got that ball, go with it.
Right.
So my thought process would be, what would maybe be one action that you would probably run for him as a freshman, like a screen action? Let's try and get him open right now.
It was a high post offense, because we're reading the defense. Say, when he's, if he's here, so they're shading him anyway. So we could get the ball to this forward over here, so to the 3 guy. Now you're defending him, and the ball it makes the ball to the 3. See what we face is that this guy would drop so much. They didn't want him posting up. So this defender is already dropping. He makes the pass here. He starts to cut. This defender is already dropping back. So if I can get him down off of the post, off of the 5 guys back screen, we just pop him right back up. We just do a down screen, So instead of him going down to the bucket, he's reading this defensive guy. So he goes down here. The defensive guy has already beat him down here in this space, so he just turns and sets another down screen on this guy, and then we could get the skinny post over here too. So once they got the action going over here, he's already cut, or this guy's already cut even. We do what we call cut 2. We cut both guards. I can show it right here. Okay. So we had a kid named Lang Wiseman, a kid from Memphis that was a really good player. So we'd have Lang and Allen. and the 5 guy here, and the 3 and the 4. So we would make the pass over to here, and this would be Allen or Lang. He slide over, same way. Now we cut both of these guys. You know, we cut Allen off of this on this side, and then we cut Lang. Lang was a really good jumper, and we throw over the top because Lang's got we cut him the same way. And his defensive players coming over, they double teaming Allen over here with this guy, and we just throw over the top. You know, so we just put in a lot of wrinkles, and then we'd hold, and then we bring the 4 back up, and then when he comes back up, like I said before, when he comes back up, we get the ball to him. We cut this guy. Now you got the skinny post over here. So once the ball comes back in his hand, you got the 2-man game on the weak side with him and his 4 on the weak side. So. We call it.
I mean, I know a 2-man game with Allen Houston's pretty dangerous.
That's what I'm saying. So either he keeps it or he can pass it. He cuts off. He does the same thing. He comes in, pops back out.
Okay.
So.
Well, just to give a proper perspective,
Yeah.
Who would you compare or say Allen's game was similar to in college as an NBA right now? Who would you say kind of matches how Allen played in college? Who reminds you of him?
That is playing now, or. Well, you know, he was a typical 2 guard. You know, he was, you know, guys like Booker. You know, I mean,
I said Booker.
When he got on a roll, I mean, he was like Booker when he got on a roll. Not a Donovan kind of guy. You know, Donovan gets a lot of stuff, a lot of different ways. But the guy Murray at Denver. You know, so.
But Allen really reminds me of Devin Booker at the levels,
yeah,
the way, the controlled way
and the
he
mid
plays.
range. See, he lived a lot with the mid range, and then of course once he got to the league, you know, his 3-point, he was like a 40-some% 3-point shooter.
Even with the dimension of how great of a 3-point shooter he was, even in NBA, but he still operated in that mid range area.
Yeah.
It's not like he lived by the 3. Like I don't have to live by the 3. I can do it from all 3 levels.
Right. And the other thing that he probably did more than some of those guys like Booker was post up. See, when the Knicks had Allen and Sprewell, I mean they played off each other and they posted up. So and they get mismatches. And usually, Sprewell or Allen would end up with a guard on them, like on the low post. And Van Gundy did a good job with this. And so the post-up play for him was a lot more prevalent than it was probably, say, with the Booker and the 2 guards now. These guys are shooters, probably. That's what they do. But the post-up, he got a lot of buckets and fouls just on the post-up. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I'm pretty sure him and Latrell had poked each other back and forth at practices between the fact that they played against each other at Alabama.
Oh, they did. I'm
pretty sure they had their moments where they talked about that good stuff.
Well, Herb Williams, you remember Herb Williams that played with Ohio State, and he played in the NBA for like 19 years? Herb is a good friend of mine. We played golf together on a couple of trips a year. So he tells me the story. He says, I guess when Sprewell, they traded for Sprewell, he had an incident where Carlissimo and all that deal. Yeah. So anyway, so he comes to the Knicks, and Van Gundy was kind of like a Pat Riley guy. He's going to do a lot of one-on-one against each other in practice. And he said, and almost invariably, Allen and Sprewell would end up matching each other in one-on-ones. And so after about the 4th day or 5th day, the guys got together, Herb and Larry Johnson and Patrick. So they went over to Van Gundy and said, I won't use the language today, but said, man, so you got to cut this stuff out. He said, these guys are going to kill each other on the floor. We ain't going to have a guard left on the team. So he said Sprewell hit Allen one day so hard, and so Allen got up, shook his head, came back, said he hit Sprewell. This is hard the next time, and they stopped it. That's it. We're not doing this anymore. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, now we're going to talk about the defensive concepts. What were your defensive principles when you were at Tennessee as a head coach? What were some of your thought processes with the nature of your teams you had? How did you operate?
Well, here again, we did a lot of the same things that we did at U of L, but you had some teams like Kentucky, for example, and they had Mashburn and those guys, and Rick was there. LSU with Shaq and Stanley Roberts and what was his name, Rockman, the guard.
But they also had Chris Jackson at one
Chris
point.
Jackson, yes. I couldn't think of his name.
But it was Chris Jackson.
Yeah, you're right, right. So it was more of an adjustment. You know, whereas at U of L, we could stay pretty much true to our philosophy. But when you playing against Shaq and Stanley Roberts and those guys, I mean, you really got to make some adjustments on how you defend in the post. You know, who you got to decide who you're going to get the shots. And when you're playing against Rick, you got to defend the 3-point shots. You know, so you got to you're not worried so much about the switches as you are working just on how you getting out on the shooters. You know, and how you covering the shooters, because you know he was going to press you for 40 minutes, just like when Arkansas came into the game. You know, the same thing with them. Now Arkansas, except for Oliver Miller, the big guy, wasn't a big scorer, so we played them pretty much the same way. They had Mayberry, Marbury, and Todd Day and those guys, so we could switch and do the same thing with them. And if you're switching and doing it the right way, unless teams can take advantage of the mismatches, you know, you can do a pretty good job. Now it always worked for us, and you know, it hadn't changed that much, you know, because that's all. Like I said, all the NBA is doing. They're getting switches with a bit, except now we're switching 5 parts. Now their switch is 2. You know, the big guy. You know, when they have to switch, when the big guy has to switch on the point guard, that's when they got problems. You know, so it's the high pick and roll from the top now and presently in the NBA. Whereas back in the day when we did it, we switching 5 positions for the most part, except when you got to play against Shaq and you know those kind of guys. You know, so.
Well, Coach, that was good stuff.
Yeah,
that was good stuff. All right, Coach. Now we're going to talk about the notion of how you view the college game, and I know you've seen it from different time frames and the evolution of it. What are your thought processes on how the college game is played in reference to when you were coaching it? What do you think about it now? What's the difference?
The biggest buzzword that I hear most of the time now is spacing, and the biggest challenge I think coaches have now in the college game is how they can teach footwork, because back years ago when I was coaching, we worked a lot on footwork, just low post moves, catch and shoot moves. And I'm sure a lot of that's done now, and because they have time, they do their workouts, you know, throughout the year. But offensively, I think everybody is trying to look at spacing. You know, how you can space out, you know, from. And if you got the personnel, I mean, it's really good. I mean, it's nothing wrong with this. No, I think it's just how the game has evolved.
When you say space out, what do you mean by spacing out? What is the notion?
Well, when the defensive rebound comes off, you got guys running to the 3-point line. You know, you got guys running, and if you don't get outside the 3-point line, the coach is screaming at you. You know, So, I mean, and again, that's okay. But you got like these guys. That are running here, and then of course you got the 5 guy who's a trailer. The 4 guy is coming down, you know, depending on where the ball is. But the 1 guy is coming down with the ball. And Carolina's been doing this for years. You know, they used to, you know, they hit here and then they setting the 5 guy. 1 guy's running to the block. That might be the 4 guy, and 1 guy is stopping out here as the high pick and roll guy. You know, so now you got a guy in the corner, another guy in the corner. The 4 or 5 guy has already gone down to the block, and then you got this 4 guy or the 5 guy stopping at the top with the 1 with the ball. You know, so now they're looking to take a 3-point shot out of transition. So transition offense is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get shots early with the court spaced out, and then from that point it's like everybody is trying to figure out how you can beat somebody off the dribble to kick it out to these shooters, and now. as a defense, you know, you look at Virginia and how they run their defense. You know, they're doing hard hedges. So the five guys coming out here setting a high screen on, it could be on the 1 or the 2. He's coming off, and the guy that's defending him is going to come out with a hard hedge, and then he's going to recover back to the basket. You know, he sets a hard hedge.
He's going to hold it.
And he's going to hold it.
Yep.
Now, if you can't get back there quick enough, these guys have to pinch defensively. These defenders, you know, these defenders on these guys, you know, this 5 is not out, and well, he could be in this case, but they have to pinch and then force this ball to come out to the wings, and then hold this guy. When this guy come in, you're holding him long enough to where you can't get a layup for this guy who rolls to the basket. And that's what I mean. They do variations off of that, but
you see, they'll do it. They'll do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Sending ball screens. So
Yeah.
now the guy's hedging, like you're saying, he's going to hedge. Now we're saying they're overloaded. We're going to say they're overloaded. We're going to say they're here. We're going to say maybe the 2's here. Now, like you're saying, this low guy, he's got to sit in here.
Got to sit in.
Because as he comes off, okay,
Right.
this guy's on a hard hedge. Okay, if this guy rolls, he's got to be over here enough to deter that pass. Because if
Right.
not, he's going to hit him with that pass.
Right.
And then you got all that area to work.
So
with.
you got him on the strong side instead of like right. That's good.
Because I know, because I seen Virginia do. I mean, watching Virginia, that they really hard hedge, especially in the isolated side. Then that low guy is going to sit in there tight.
Right.
And they may even exit, because if this is the 4-man. Say if that's the 4-man, he'll exit if he's got to take it. Say the 5, because that's why he knows he trusts him enough to say the 5 knows I can hold that.
Yep.
So if the 4-man is low and he goes, he can take that and he'll get back over here and take his man. He'll exit.
Right.
So I mean, so that's the communication. They do a good job of that.
Yep. So the spacing thing and what you just showed is the biggest thing offensively. You know, because you don't see like what we ran the high post offense, you know, because it's more compact, and we're banging. You know, they're spacing and
that's why I wanted to talk with you about the physicality of the game. With the dynamic of say like a Derek Griffith and Lancaster Gordon and those guys, the Mill Wagners, and the nature of how y'all operated y'all offense. To me, I feel like it would still be potent nowadays because people wouldn't be used to it. They still wouldn't defend it. They wouldn't know how to handle it. So if you just said, look, y'all can open up the floor, y'all can try and shoot threes and do all those other things, but we're going to beat you in here, in the trenches.
Right.
I mean, would you feel that that's still prevalent?
I do. And I remember Memphis at that time was probably our biggest rivalry. You know, Louisville and Memphis games were like wars. And the years when we had Rodney and Scooter and Charles Jones and those guys, everybody is in position to rebound. You know, if you think about it, from the guy who did the duck in, he's in position. The guy who screened down on the 5 guy coming out, he's in position. The 5 guy at the top who makes that pass. So we got a minimum of 3 guys going to the offensive glass. So we were playing Memphis one year, and I think it was Scooter and Rodney, those guys were there, and we just demolished them on the board. And I can't remember what offense. I think Larry Finch was the head coach at that time. Maybe Dana Kirk. I don't remember who it was. And this little lady, after the game, we were walking out of the arena, and she's screaming at us, "Take those thugs back home!" She said, "They're thugs. Look at how they play. They just beat up on our rebounding." So I'm laughing, you know, as we're walking out. But that's all it was. You know, we just pounded the glass because of our positioning. So, I mean, you take something and you give up something. You know. So
we're saying we're saying with the way when it appears that people resort back to what gets the job done when it matters. Like in the NCAA tournament, you start to see, because now everybody can really focus on your flaws and what you do, and we're going to take this away. And the funny thing is, it's like, okay, let's resort to taking these type of shots and getting it inside. And then like in the NBA, you watch an NBA, team sees you 7 times. I mean, it could go 7 games. But, you know, in a series, as you can see that a lot of teams, we're not shooting a lot of regular shots. Scores get lower because we're going to take better shots. this shot. We're going to get it to right here. We're going to find where the advantage is. So the one thing I want to ask you is, do you see teams when it matters, we're going to play this way, but when it's kind of like, okay, like regular season, like in NBA, like we're just going to play. So what's your thought on that?
Well, I think talent comes out during the playoffs. A lot of the stuff during the season is fluff. You got, some teams are playing well, but when, as you said, when you go through a playoff series of 7 games, I mean, a talented team is going to win most of the time. I mean, you can't come up with enough X's and O's to outdo a talented team that you got to play against. So I mean, the difference has been that you got teams that have brought in 3 superstars, 3 Hall of Famers, and that kind of changes the dynamics a little bit because, before that happened, you had a lot of guys who just had, talent, better talented teams, and now all of a sudden you got super talented teams, and for the most part they've been winning. Maybe Golden State might have been the exception because they never brought in like 3 superstar players, but they had Clay, they had Steph, they had Draymond. The chemistry was so good, their philosophy was so good that they still had a lot of success. And then you had a guy like Steph Curry, who's just a phenomenon, So, but usually you go through a 7-game series. Brooklyn, for example, if they could have kept those 3 guys healthy and together,
well, it's a different game.
I mean, you can almost mail them the trophy. You can't. It's no way to overcome that. So, so in a 7-game series, talent's going to show. I mean, it's unless something happens, really, really weird.
Because I think sometimes when you're looking at it, and when I watch them play, it's like, okay, we're going to try and take it to, okay, we're going to take the mid-range shot. We're going to, like Devin Booker, like the way Phoenix Suns plays, I keep telling people, like, they play like a college team. They operate like they execute every time pretty much. Not every time down the floor, but they're going to execute something. They're committed offensively, they're committed defensively. And so for me, I'm like, the way they operate, the way they play resembles that of a college team. And so their execution, and 9 times out of 10, they're just as talented as everybody else, especially at this point in time, especially with the injuries that were taking place. They're just as talented as everybody else. And it always appeared to me that at the end of the day, the team that executes on both sides of the ball the most is going to win. And they appear to be the team that's just going to execute on both sides of the ball, commit to whatever it is offensively and defensively.
Well, you add Chris Paul to that mix, and Ayton. I mean, who is just really, I'm more impressed with him every time I see him play. I mean, he just
his growth.
Yeah, his growth. So now you got Booker and Ayton, and then Chris Paul, and you got a coach, who they love to play for. Monty, I mean, I've known Monty for a lot of years, and great story, and losing his wife in a car accident and all of that stuff. So, Alan and I used to do father and son camp, and we do it at the NBA All-Star game. We do it in the summers, and he came down and spoke. If the NBA had a All-Star game in New Orleans, then we do our father and son camp, where we bring in fathers of NBA players and just talk about importance of having fathers in the home. And but he was one of the most impressive NBA coaches that we had to speak to. We do a panel discussion, and so very impressive.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me because it appears everywhere he goes and where he's been, there's a trend of success. And the team gets better. And I mean, as soon as they get to Phoenix, they go to the bubble. They go undefeated. They come back and look. I mean, immediately they don't even miss a beat, and they're pushing for the finals. So
well, he and Tyronn Lue, I've been impressed with him too. And a lot of times, I judge coaches from an X's and O's standpoint by what they do after timeout. And Monty has some really good stuff that he does after timeout, especially with using Ayton with the high pick and roll. See the high pick and roll. You just don't put 2 players out there and say, okay, run a high pick and roll. See, the pieces have to be interchanging pieces that take people away from the paint that allows that to take place. So a lot of the stuff that he does really is impressive to me.
All right, Coach, now we're going to do my favorite segment. It's called Time and Score. Okay? I'm going to give you a situation that happens through the course of the game, and you just draw up a play, and Tell me what you would do, okay? All right, your team is up 1, okay? We'll say the score is 80-79. You got a minute left, going the length of the court. Okay, both teams are in the bonus, okay? And we're saying college, this is college, okay? 30-second shot clock, okay? Your leading scorer is your 2 guard, but he's having a bad night, okay? Okay, your 4-man is your 3rd best player, but he's having a good night. So what would you look to do?
The first thing I'm trying to get them to understand is that, you know, with 1 minute left in the game, it doesn't matter whether we take the lead early in that 1 minute or late in that 1 minute. But the primary objective is to our team is up 1, right?
Correct.
So
yep,
yeah. So the objective is to get a shot and to get a score where they'll have to make at least a 3 to tie the game. So, but everything that I've always done in time and score. First of all, is try to get the ball to the person that you think, you know, is going to be the best one in that situation. And a lot of teams I've been on, you know, your leading scorer hasn't always been that clutch guy who you want to have the ball, you know, toward the end of the shot clock situation. So what I'm trying to do, of course, is if I'm up 80-79, my first option is that if we can run the clock out, then we run the clock out, we win by 1, right? I mean that's so. But now if we got to score and just try to protect the lead that we got, then I got certain people I'm trying to get the ball to. So if my two best players are my 2 and my 4, then I'm going to have the 2 and the 4 stacked in this situation here, and probably my 5 because he can take the ball out, and then I'm gonna space out with my 3 and my 1. So, but what I always try to do though was to have my best player set the screen. So if I'm trying to get the ball to my 4-man, then I'm gonna have him set the screen on the 2. Because first I'm just trying to get the ball in bounds. I mean, we got a situation, you got a minute to get the ball in bounds. So I'm gonna have these guys probably, depending on what the defense is, have them interchange just to keep the defense back here busy. So I'm gonna have these guys on the back line interchange, and they're always gonna be available to flash
If you need them.
If you need them, just like in my press offense. Anytime I'm running a press offense, these 2 guys normally are the guys that I'm looking for to get the ball. So when 4 sets the screen on 2, I want 2 making a hard cut to get the ball, but then I want 4 screening. He got to set a good screen and coming back.
To the ball.
Come back to the ball. So once we get it here to this 4, then I want the 2, of course, you know, to look to space it out, run a diagonal cut. Anytime we were facing pressure or situations like this, we always try to run diagonal cuts because then it makes the defense make a decision. If you run in straight line cuts, it's easier to defend, or horizontal cuts to defend. So once he comes here and I can hit this 2, or hit the 2 here, then I'm gonna get the ball to the 4. If 4 is having the best night, yeah, I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna get it to him on a diagonal cut. Okay, and then these guys are gonna retreat to the baseline. He's going back to the baseline. And then I want the 2 to be available. Well, no matter if he's coming here, we hit the 4 on the diagonal. Then the 2 is going to just space out, because somewhere you figure that they're going to probably maybe double him or force him to go one direction. Well, or I might reverse it. I might have the the 2 setting the screen on the 4. You might have. But anyway, in any time and score situation, if I'm trying to get the ball to a specific player, I want that player setting the screen, and so I might have the 2, setting the screen on the 4. So when he comes here to get the ball, now the two runs the diagonal. So, but I'm always trying to get. Playing downhill, and what happens a lot of times with players, teams like that, is they end up playing horizontally and not playing downhill. But this is the key. These guys are the key. When you come across, when you interchange these guys, and you see they're in trouble here, then you're coming up, and then if the ball is hit to one of these guys, then you're making your cut to the basket.
So at that point, once you get in the half court, what you gonna look to do then? Once you get in the half court, because if you're up 1, we got to get that bucket. So what would be that play that you're gonna put? You already told them, you came out of the timeout. This is what we're doing.
I'm gonna go probably once we go get.
Now, you know what? I'll give you Allen too. I'll give you Allen. Allen's your 2. Even though he's having a bad night, I'll give it to you.
I was gonna take him anyway. Yeah. Because the reason I was because I'm going back to something I told you before. And so now we got the ball with.
I say you cross half because if you took it up, I'd say at least 8 seconds gone off the clock. You're probably at 52 seconds.
8 seconds going off the clock. Yeah. Then everybody runs to the baseline.
We're one for a flat.
Yeah, we're gonna make it. We're gonna do the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. So we run
because both teams in the bonus anyway.
Yeah.
So both teams. So he may get fouled.
Right.
Going to the basket or something.
Right.
Okay.
So in this case, let's say I didn't have Allen though. Let's say somebody else. So in that case, I mean, you know what? My 2 guard is having a bad night, but he's our bread and butter. So I'm going to him.
So you're gonna ride with him.
I'm gonna ride with him. So I'm getting him. When he sets that screen and he comes back, he sets that screen. The 4 hits it back to the 2. The 2 runs the diagonal. So he's coming across here with the ball. 4's already hit him. The 5 is down here.
Yeah, 5 took it out.
Yeah, 5 took it out. So here comes my 2 on the diagonal. These guys are running back down to the block. And the only thing I might do different is to set this high ball screen for him instead of going low 1-4. If you got 8 seconds, these guys got to get there. Now you got your 2 guy here. Just bring one of these guys up and set the high ball screen. But that's where I like the spacing now. See, when you talk about the college game now, where spacing is so important, in time and score situation, your spacing is really that's critical. But I do 2 things basically. I want these guys crossing and flashing if they have to, reading the defense. That's one thing. That's the first thing I want to do. The second thing is that the guy I want to get the ball eventually is the guy who sets the screen. And if it's a half court situation, I'm doing the same thing. I'm wanting, if we're stacked in here.
You took it out on the side.
Yeah, if the ball's out on the side, if this guy moves in, I want my 2 guys setting the screen on this guy and then flaring out. But I'm always or flaring up. But I want my guys to get open by setting a good hard screen, because they're gonna trap, they're gonna double. But now if you set a hard screen on the guy and nobody comes with him, and you can roll to the basket, you might get a layup.
But at the end of the day, you get that ball across half court, you're gonna roll with who got. You're gonna roll with your bread and butter.
I'm gonna roll
regardless if he's off or not.
Yeah. And I might have a second option, which might be the 4.
Yeah.
But I'm rolling with him, and I'm gonna flatten it out for him. We did that a lot. I mean, we flattened it out at the end of a game. We flattened it out, and
but 9 times out of 10, Allen took you home. So
yeah, I mean, he's gonna get fouled, or because he was. I mean, my assistant coaches used to always tell me, during the game and in practice, coach, you got to get more shots for Allen. You know, as a coach, you know, with your son playing, you probably went through this sometimes with your,
I mean,
you know, you want your team play. You as a coach's son, you know the game. You know, you want to make sure your dad wins, and you want to do all the things where you know, you're successful. So I mean. If I were to look back at the number of shots he took to average 22 points a game, he would be really low. And my assistant coach used to always get on me about that. You got to get more shots. Get more shots. We got it.
I got a question for you. Being at the high level that you was, and to have Allen, especially the level he was at, how talented he was, did you feel there was a certain way you needed to approach that dynamic as far as, you know, not want to put too much on him because he is your son, and allow him as a player to show that he's capable of handling and being as far as being your son as a player, like whatever if he's giving me all these shots or he's giving me this, I earned it or I show the ability to do it without no question. So it's not the fact that he's giving it to me. I have the ability to do what he's asking me to do.
Well, a lot of that was answered by his whole approach to the game. You know, because he was always, I mean, he's the first one in the gym. You know, A and B student. So anytime there was a question about if he's giving me this or somebody else needs to get more, you know, I could easily answer because he would set such a good example. You know, so if he's one of those guy knuckleheads who, I mean, it'd have been hard. It'd been really hard to set an example, have a philosophy about what he's doing, what you're doing. But because of the kind of player and the kind of student he was and person he was, you know, then it made it easier to answer those questions, you know. So, but if you're gonna have your son playing for you, he needs to be a really good player. Either that or make him a manager. You know. Well,
I mean, I played for my father, a 2-time All-American. So
So you, I mean, you could handle that because of who you were. But it's like Al McGuire. This Allie McGuire. This is years ago. You may remember Al McGuire. He coached at Marquette, big time coach back in the days. He was winning everything. Winning. 77, Jerome Whitehead, Butcher Lee, all those guys were big-time players. But had this kid on his team that came into his office one day, and his son Allie played for him at Marquette. The kid comes in the office and told Al McGuire, said, Coach, he said, I have an issue. He said, I'm just as good as your son Allie, and you playing him ahead of me. He said, what's up with that? Al McGuire says, well, if you're going to play ahead of my son, you better be much better than he is. You can't be as good as he is. So you better be much better. So, but that wasn't the case with him because, you know, he was, and, you know, he could have come out after his junior year and played on that against that dream team. I don't know if you've seen highlights of that dream team when they beat the pros, Bird and those guys. Well, they were in La Jolla, California. I think Allen made 7 3-pointers in that game. They tried to sweep that game under the rug and said that he did that on purpose, but that wasn't the case. And the next game, MJ said, I'm going to Houston. So Allen, I said, well, what happened? He said, he fouled me every time I touched the ball. But he was on that dream team, so.
Well, Coach, I want to say thank you. That was good stuff. It was awesome, everything you gave me today. And I appreciate you being here today.
Okay. All right. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. Okay.
All right now.